Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial in Photoshop. Today we will be talking about color correction and post-production. But before we go to color, let's just explain something very basic and simple about colors theory. Okay, simply colors divided into two different sections. The first one is the warm colors and the second one is the cold colors. Now warm colors are like red, orange and yellow. The cold ones are violet, blue and green. So basically whenever we want to add some warm touches, we add the warm colors. Okay, similarly we do with the cold atmospheres, we add blue, green or violet. Okay, now let's kick this off explaining 2 or 4 different methods to correct colors. There are 4 basic steps we can do to correct our photo colors, and those 4 are literally optional. Like for example, I could use curves and levels only. I could use hue, saturation and color balance. I may only use curves for the color correction. Okay guys, so this is these 4 are not related together. Okay, so whenever I want to make color correction, I always start with curves, because the first thing that we notice in every rendered photo that the contrast is reduced, for example. So we're going to increase the contrast using curves. Okay, the next thing we'll be using hue saturation, which is responsible about the saturation of colors. Okay, and changing colors. The third method is the color balance, which is the most important step in the whole lesson. Okay guys, about levels, it's responsible about light and dark. Okay, so lightness in general. Now let's start with the curves one. Before we go to our picture and correct its colors, now the shortcut of curves is the Ctrl M, and as you notice that I have added or attached this symbol over here, which related to adjustment layer. Okay, which refers to adjustment layer. As you can see that we also have curves here, levels and hue saturation, in addition to color balance. So what's the difference between the shortcut and the adjustment layer? Well, the shortcut, it edits the photo without editing this this option. Okay, like for example, I have inserted some settings to curves and hit OK. Whenever you are using Ctrl M or the shortcut of curves, you cannot go back and, for example, shift this point down, for example. Okay, so you have to undo the curves, then redo it again. Okay, so that's why I will be using the adjustment layer, because I can edit it whenever I want, the way I want and as much as I want. Okay guys, so let's kick this off with the curves here. Now something to know about curves, as we mentioned, it's responsible about contrast. You will notice that every single picture will have this diagram, which is radial line over here and some color information down there. Now the thing I want to do actually to divide this line into 3 sections or 3 sectors. Okay guys, and go to the first point. Now shift this point up, in order to increase the lighting of this picture. Okay, so it's going to bend this way. Now the second point is related to the dark areas, okay, to shadows. So whenever you increase the light, to make contrast or to add contrast, you have to load down the dark one. So it's going to be like this extended S letter, and you will get some nice results. Okay, this way you can add some contrast or additional contrast to your image. Now we will be working on this image, this rendered image, and edit this one until we are satisfied with it. Now let's go to adjustment layer, add the curves one. Okay, let's see. Now let's pick this point, click and drag a little bit. Okay, as you can see that the lightness has increased. And let's do the opposite, take another one down there and drag it down. As you can see guys, that the contrast has increased incredibly actually. So in my case I don't really need this much lighting, so I'll keep it right there. Okay, I just added some shadows or increased the shadow value. Okay, now let's go to the other one. This one, hue saturation, is separated into two different sections. Now as we mentioned, the hue is to change colors, okay, the saturation in order to edit the saturation of something or some color. Okay, so whenever you go there, you notice that there are two different sliders in addition to lightness, and this way we will not be working with lightness, we'll be working only with saturation and hue. In my case for now, I will be working on only the saturation because it's the most important thing about this thing, about this picture. As you can see that this green is let me see, is quite annoying. Okay, so I will desaturate this color by adding an adjustment layer, hue saturation, shift the saturation to minus value until you see that this color has been desaturated. Okay, now actually you can notice the difference between the two pictures, okay, before and after. I might have decreased it. Okay, that's enough. Okay, that's satisfying. Great. Now as you can see that there are only small touches. Okay, now let's move to the other one, which is actually let's start with levels. For me, in my case, levels, as we mentioned, it controls the lightness. Now there are two sliders over here, this one and this one down below. These two, let's add it here. The second one actually it lighten up the picture generally. Okay, the same with the other one, it makes it darker. Now the basic one we will be working on is this diagram over here. As you can see, there are three sliders. The first one is responsible for dark colors, the right one is for the light colors, the one in the middle is responsible about the colors in between. Okay, now what we do with this diagram, whenever you see some empty space over here or here maybe for example, and some other cases, you just drag the slider to the beginning of this color information starting from here. Okay, now as you can see that the contrast has been increased in this case. Okay, now let's move to color balance, which is the most important part of our lesson because this one controls the atmosphere. Okay, now our final result will go from there. Now let's explain this a little bit. We have three different sliders. Well, as you can see that the first part of, or the right part of these sliders are the RGB colors. Okay, we have this hot color with two cold colors. The second part is one cold color and two hot colors. Now how can we work this out in our picture? Let's try it out. Color balance. Okay, now let's assume that we are in summer. Okay, so we will be adding some warm colors, which are we have some variety options here: red, magenta and blue. In my case I will be adding some red. Okay, that's great, and some additional few yellow. Okay, maybe just 2 minus 2 for magenta. Okay, in this case that I have increased the hot atmosphere, the warm atmosphere. Now this makes difference. Look at this, before and after the color balance. This is only the color balance, guys. Okay, amazing. Now after we have finished our corrections, group them into CC, for example, like color correction, and that's it. This is the one before and after color correction. It took me literally 2 minutes to correct some pictures colors. Okay, now this is the whole process of color correction. Let's move to post-production, guys. The post-production process means that I'm going to edit some elements, adding some new layers, adding some other objects, play with lighting and adjust many things to improve and enhance my final results. So in my case I will be first working on lighting, because lighting gives the most or lighting is the most realistic things about renders, as you know. Now I'm going to add a new layer and I will name it glow. Okay, because I'm going to add some glow touches around. Okay, in addition to glowing some parts of this building. Before I go to other objects, I will start with the building. Going to the basic layer. Okay, we'll go with the magic tool and start selecting. Actually, let's check the contiguous. I will be selecting these lightened areas or lighted surfaces. Okay, that's great. Maybe a little bit here, maybe here. Okay, we don't need to work on some other elements. Okay, good, that's satisfying for me. Now we can go and hit Ctrl J in order to copy those selected surfaces into a new layer. Now this layer is going to be affected by layer style. Okay, double click on the empty space, go to layer style, then outer glow. Okay guys, outer glow. Hit the outer glow button and you will notice that it has glown this way. Now let's increase the opacity in order to see the result in this way. Or yes, okay, that's fine. Now this much is too much. Okay, now we have to decrease the opacity. We need only, guys, just a few touches. I have already chosen this light orange over here. We can make it lighter. Some people choose the white one. Actually, I don't recommend it. I recommend to use same colors as the atmosphere. Okay, so hit OK. We can control the size of this glow. Okay, for me this is perfect. I hit OK and here is our glowed surfaces. Okay guys, just small touches which makes difference. Okay, now let's back to our glow layer. We will be using brush for this time. Okay, we'll be using brush. Now increase the size and decrease the hardness. Okay, increase the size, decrease the hardness. All we have to do is to search for these glowing spots and add some additional glow, actually using the same color as we used in the outer glow. Here for example, maybe here a little bit. Let's see, in this wall here. We can also glow this glass, for example, maybe bigger, a little bit bigger. As you can see, a little bit for this chair and the water surface, in addition to this plant. Okay guys, okay, that's great. Now we're not going to keep this layer this way. We will add some blending mode, which is screen. Okay, screen, it glows up the layer more. Now set the opacity to 0 and increase it little by little until you are satisfied with this glow layer. Okay, now off on, small touches guys that are unnoticeable. Now let's add some other lighting to the sky. I will go down to my basic layer and select the sky. Actually, I'm going to uncheck contiguous in order to select the sky in between these leaves. Okay, now hit the shift in order to add selection. I will be adding these layers. Okay, great. Now Ctrl J will do the same as we did with this building. Go to layer style, outer glow, maybe just decrease the size a little bit. Okay, that's satisfying. Okay, this way. Let's see. Amazing. That's amazing. Okay, for lighting, there is one missing element, which is the direct light. Okay, so I will be adding a new layer. We'll name it sun ray. Now today we will be learning a new tool, which is the gradient one. Okay guys, the gradient tool, as you can see, that it creates a gradual blend between colors. Now let's open up a new sheet and we'll teach you guys this tool. Now this tool is controlled by these colors and this fading sample. Now I will be using, for example, the black color. For the gradient style, I will keep it on this one. Okay, now the shape of gradient. Okay, there are 5 different shapes. The first one is the linear. Whenever you choose the linear, you click and drag, give Photoshop some direction, and it will start the gradient toward this direction, starting from the color you have chosen before. Okay, the second one is the radial. The radial gives you some radial color. Okay, radial gradient this way. The third one, it gives you this shape. The second one, some other different shapes. The last one is the star. Okay guys, now whenever you choose another layer, you will notice that it does not affect this gradient because we have chosen the faded style. Okay, how can I change it to make this gradient goes from black to red or the opposite? Now click on gradient editor. We'll go through the basic file. We have 3 basic shapes. The first one is from the first color you have chosen to the second one. The second basic one is the one we've been working on. It only fades one color. The third one is only black and white. Now let's go with the first one. Okay, let's do this, and you'll notice that it graduates the color red to the black one. We can do the opposite. Hit X and it will revert, sorry, it will exchange between these two slots, as you can see. Now the radial one, hit X. That's it. That's everything about gradient, guys. We'll be working on the first two ones, which are the linear and the radial. Now let's close this one back here. In order to set our colors to default, hit the D. Okay, hit D on your keyboard. You'll notice that it will back to black and white. Now in our case we will be adding some let's see here, let's go to basic, faded gradient. Okay, we'll be adding some direct light from this corner. Okay guys, so I will be choosing this color, the same orange, then choose the radial and shift drag, go to screen, opacity 0, increase it a little bit. Okay, that's satisfying. Only small touches as we mentioned. Okay guys, that's it. That's everything about editing and color correction and post-production. Now our very last step is to go to camera raw filter. Now hit Ctrl Shift Alt E in order to merge all layers into a new one. Now Ctrl Shift A to go to camera raw filter. Now in this case I will be working with these sliders. As you notice that the first one is the temperature, which makes the weather go either warm or cold. I will not be using this one because I've already edited my colors, so I will be adding only just few touches to magenta. Okay, as you can see I can go to this box and play with arrows up and down, okay, in order to edit this value. That's a bit exposure, go to contrast, increase it a little bit. Highlights, I always decrease the highlights in order to avoid burn on the lightened surfaces. Okay, so decrease the shadows as well. Now for texture, it adds some extra texture to our textured materials. Okay, let's try this out. As you can see that it gets sharper, clarity as well. Okay, that's satisfying. Maybe I have exaggerated the texture a little bit. Okay, now the vibrance, decrease it small value. Okay, that's enough for me. Now before and after the camera raw filter, let's check everything before and after. This is the one before and this is the after. Wow, this is really incredible. Just a few touches, a few minutes, and I have changed my picture like 36 degrees, guys. Okay, now this is everything about color correction and post-production as a part one. The next part will be about doing the same effects to an interior shot. Now guys, don't forget to join our Telegram channel in order to download these files for free and support us. Comment below if you have any other suggestions, some other tutorials maybe you can ask for. Maybe you can drop a like if you find it useful and enjoyable. See you guys in the next lesson.